Serious, people who have found human remains, murder scenes or other suspicious scenes. What happened? My buddy and I were out for a trail run in the local state park when we came across a guy who hung himself. Called the cops, we were interviewed, and sent on our way. The guy's car was nearby, filled with newspapers. He was a paper delivery guy. My dad found a human skull in a gravel pit. Called the cops, they came and got it, never heard anything else. I was a dumb kid at the time. So when he told me about it, I assumed we were going to solve a mystery. Turns out reality is way more boring. I found a dead body when I was 13. The guy had hung himself from the rope swing my friend and I had made, 9 years later and still think about it every day. I worked at a gas station and a guy accidentally popped his trunk instead of his fuel door and a lady escaped. He tried to muscle her back into the car but bystanders spooked him and he fled without her. Was digging a grave for my friend's dog. He had a large dog and lived near the woods, so we were digging rather deep. Found a skull, called the cops and we were both rather spooked. A few weeks later we are told that it was a burial from the 1800s. We put it back where we found it after. Get on the news. https://www.reddit.com/r//news//com/comment//slash/r//com/UTM_share_ampersand UTM_score/question mark UTM_share ampersand UTM_score/sim_f. 2 people were murdered in my front yard and a third almost bled to death on my porch. 2 guys robbed the third and stabbed him in the neck. He shot them both dead with only 2 shots and spurting blood out of his neck like a fountain. Didn't really find anything, but walked into the aftermath of a suicide bombing. Those scenes will never leave me. My parents would send me to El Salvador for 3 months every 2 years till I was 16. I saw a total of 8 dead bodies. Some hanging from freeways, some just dead in the streets because of gangs. I worked a complete interior remodel on an apartment building from 1846 and whoever ran it into practically condemned status had stuffed the top floor maintenance rooms with hoarder nonsense. In order to check the integrity of the structure, everything had to be taken out. I found an urn filled with the ashes of someone who'd apparently died in their apartment. There was a note attached saying, "If found, please contact lawyer XXX." I made the call. The lawyer was long dead but the law firm still existed. The cops came, put on the gloves and took it away. Very weird day indeed. I witnessed a man on a bike get hit by a box truck while mowing boulevards at work. Saw the whole thing happen and couldn't look away. He was laying on the ground and looked dead on impact. I would look at the news story daily and still think about it time to time. Was a wake-up call for me in that life is really temporary and I should live it up in the moment. I found a dog walker unconscious in a ditch with the dog going wild, called an ambulance and while waiting the dude stopped breathing. Found 3 avalanche victims who'd been buried for approx 6 months and melted out, due to the heroism of one of their partners who organized a search party. Called 911, they transferred us to the local Air Force base, and they said they'd send a helicopter to recover the bodies the next day as the weather wasn't ideal for mountain flying that day. She stayed out in the mountains by herself overnight to protect her friends from scavenging animals. She's a hero. Our chickens dug up a human skull in their pen. Dad took it to the police. They said, "Meh, is old, we don't care." One guy guessed it was an Indian skull, because it was too thick for a white man. Good old small town racism. At a June high school class reunion party at a classmate's beach house, the body of an ice fisherman who disappeared finally washed up. Some went to look and I didn't. The Ontario police came. A week in Cancun with my now ex. In the early morning of the second day I went for a swim and found a corpse on the beach. Half-hour later, Mexican FBI everywhere as it's a corpse of some cartel guy. Also, 1 week in 2019 I believe, I saw like 5 dead people in the underground, on separate occasions. As it was like 25, 30 that week, I think most were homeless people frozen to death. One guy though jumped on the rails. Edit, I remembered the first time I saw a corpse was some old woman who jumped off the window near my school. Her hair was stuck in a fence for a year maybe. Security here, found a guy who opted out in the most Midwestern way possible. New Year's Eve, he walked into one of the fielded we have on property, sat himself up against a hail bale, and decided to swallow what his 357 Magnum gave him. Lost half his head in the process. I didn't come along until many hours later and found his body frozen to the ground. 911 operator asks me how I know he's dead. Boss saunters up and asks how I know he's dead, because, and I quote, "are not a doctor, dude is missing his head from the nose up." SMH. When my son was about 7, he and I found a foully stinking child-sized shape wrapped in a sleeping bag in the desert near our house. We went home and I called cops, and when they arrived I led them back to the site. I was a bit nervous, because in a lot of the true crime books I read, the person who finds a corpse is automatically a suspect in a murder. When we got to the place, the cops flipped back the sleeping bag and immediately saw that it was just a dead, rotting pit bull dog. They took my info and said they would be in touch, but I never heard anything else about it. I was working on the loading dock of a big box store. A truck driver was standing between the back of his 18-wheeler and the open bay when his truck jumped into reverse and crushed him. I didn't see it, but I heard it, and I'm so grateful I didn't see it. Found a guy that jumped from the 8th floor laying in a pool of his own blood, and his sister/wife screaming in terror and begging for someone to call 911. Also volunteered at a hospital for a week, so took some bodies to the morgue. When my husband was 19 or so, he found a man who had shot himself in car. Called it in, and proceeded to watch sheriff, local PD and state PD discuss jurisdictions for over an hour. Cars on the side of the road, pulled over, asked some questions, minivan ran over a cyclist, wife is a doc, she went running down the bank, one of her co-workers. His head popped like a melon. His skin was so grey, the visual was too much for me. I gagged and puked. 0 to 10 do not recommend. I was chilling with my brother, he was sniffing some shitted. Went on a Discord call and about my own business. Decided to check on him since he is in my place. He was cold. Gone. My uncle went missing for a week when I was a kid. He was an alcoholic and would have episodes of depression where he would just disappear for periods of time, so no one went to check on him. My mom and I went to his apartment to check if he was there, and when we walked in we found his body on the couch. He'd been dead for a few days at least. I mostly remember the smell and my mom telling me to go find a phone and call 911, it was the 90s. Once found a dead guy on the sidewalk in the middle of the night. Called the cops, waited till they arrived, gave a statement and then home to sleep. That was it.